Hey Exiles, welcome back. Today I'm going to walk you through a full leveling guide for the Melee Bleed Ritualist. This build focuses on applying strong bleed damage over time while staying durable, making it one of the smoother melee league starters you can play. Let's break down the leveling path, skills, passives, and tips to get you to the endgame quickly. Right out of the gallows, you won't be able to bleed anything, yet. You'll find yourself learning Disengage, Twister, and Whirling Slash in that order before you learn your first bleeding skill, Rake. So let's start with Disengage first. This will add mobility and damage right out of the gallows, basically a deadly dodge roll, but most importantly, this is our only means of getting frenzy charges via parry blocking. Next is Twister, which is a projectile tornado that pierces all enemies and has a hit interval of 2/3 of a second, meaning one tornado can hit a bad guy, and if 2/3 of a second has passed, another tornado can come in and hit the bad guy again. Also, the enemy is blinded, making them harder to hit you. Frenzy charges can multiply the amount of twisters you shell out. Last skill before Rake, Whirling Slash, a melee skill that has 3 stages and like Twister, inflicts blind. You will use this skill to generate even more twisters on top of having frenzy charges. Use the skill 3 times consecutively to maximize this multiplying effect. The skill gem to learn Rake needs to be level 3, but now that you have a level 3 skill gem, it's time to use it for Rake. And it's time to add that to our moveset, our first bleeding skill. It's also important to note when an enemy is bleeding and moving, that bleeding becomes aggravated and bleeding is doubled. This can happen during knockback, when an enemy is moving, or if you have passive nodes in your passive tree that affect aggravated bleeding. Before we get to the next 2 crucial skills, which is Barrage and Bloodhunt, you will need to pick up 2 different skills in the meantime. It could be whatever. I picked Explosive Spear for the fire ground effect that adds our elemental damage to Whirling Slash and Twisters. The other skill I learned was Lightning Spear, but I didn't ever use it. Now, you're probably in Act 2, so once you get a skill gem level 5, use it for Barrage. This will allow you to consume frenzy charges and multiply those twisters. And finally, by the 3rd act, you will have the skill gem level 7, and you'll be super excited about adding Bloodhunt to your skill set for the finishing AoE move. Let's talk about spirit gems now. First spirit gem you're going to want is Wind Dancer. This will increase your evasion, but also provides knockback, which aggravates bleeding, and damages all enemies around you. It's great for leeching. Second spirit gem is of course Herald of Blood. Enemies killed with, not by, blood loss will explode, causing area damage. This helps with mob clearances when twisters can make them bleed. Third, final, and least important spirit gem, if you have the spirit, you need the spirit, will be Combat Frenzy. This generates frenzy charges whenever you freeze, electrocute, or pin an enemy. Since this build is strictly physical damage, we will be pinning our enemies to get those charges. Let's get into the support gems. We'll start with Disengage. You'll want Brutality 1 and Rapid Attacks. Alternatives are Crater and Cooldown Recovery as you progress or unlock a support slot. For Twister, Brutality 1 and Prolonged Duration. Salvo is going to be a huge support gem. Equip that immediately when available. Whirling Slash, Brutality 1 and Rapid Attacks. Swap Rapid Attacks with Cadence and or Punch Through if the slots will allow. For Rake, you want Brutality 1 and Momentum. Later, you're going to get Ancestral Call and Deep Cuts. Barrage, you want Perpetual Charges. This adds a chance of frenzy charges not to be consumed when Barrage skill is used. And for Bloodhunt, you want Brutality and Pit. This is where we generate our frenzy charges, since Bloodhunt does the most physical damage. If you are struggling with bosses, this gem can be swapped with Momentum to add that extra damage. You will be adding Momentum support eventually once you unlock some slots, but another support to add later is Heavy Swing. Now let's talk about the passive tree. First, you're going to want to make your way down towards the spear, hitting 2 damage clusters and a skill speed cluster before you get to the spear. Next, by the spear and near the first damage cluster, we'll be allocating towards the bleed incision nodes. These are the closest bleed nodes in the early game of this build and provides bleeding magnitude increases when incision procs. I'm still relatively ignorant to the mechanisms of incision, but we replace those passive nodes with more meaningful bleeding passives in the endgame. Alright, make sure you get the attack damage nodes here to the left and one-handed damage nodes as well. Go for these 3 clusters next that increase damage and bleeding magnitude. Set yourself up to transition to endgame by going down the passive tree where the second jewel socket is. We'll be transitioning the incision/bleeding nodes to these pure bleeding nodes. And 2 tips for the jewels that you want to be looking out for is 1, find an emerald jewel with increased attack damage, spear damage, speed, and ailment duration. And the second jewel are sapphires with increased magnitude of ailments. And while we're talking about the passive tree, let's talk about the Ascendancy for the Ritualist. First, you'll want to go for the Blood Boil node. There's a node before that one that increases damage by 20%, but Blood Boil is a free skill that deals damage to nearby enemies after an enemy has been killed. Second, go for Wildwood Persistence. This is going to increase your life recovery rate, thus increasing your life leech and your survivability. For the final route of the Ritualist Ascendancy, choose 30% less mana, get the 3rd ring, increase attributes, and finally get Mystic Attunement. If you choose this route early, you will run into the problem of running out of mana even more, so don't make that mistake. So let's talk about equipment now. Keep your eyes open for one-handed spears with higher physical DPS. Bleed scales off base physical damage, so raw numbers matter more than attack speed or elemental damage for this build. And as for the armor you're looking for, it should be evasion and energy shield base with the buckler as your shield that provides extra evasion. This is a strictly flat physical damage build, so do not worry about increases in elemental damage to any equipment. Physical damage only affects bleeding. That means finding a spear with modifiers that add physical damage and percent increase physical damage. You also want to find a spear that may have life leech or mana leech as a bonus. For the rings, you want modifiers that add physical damage and or modifiers with mana or life leech. Gloves, you socket a wolf talisman to increase bleeding magnitude by 10%. You can corrupt the gloves for the possibility of adding another socket, which we can place another wolf talisman. However, look for gloves that add physical damage, increase attack speed, has life leech, and or mana leech. You want at least 1 piece of equipment with one of those leeches. And then for an amulet anointment suggestions, we've got Blood Tearing, which increases magnitude of bleeding by 15%, increases 25% physical damage. And then another anointment is Goring for leechers, 5% reduced maximum life, 30% increase amount of life leech, 40% increased physical damage. That's pretty big. With a little experience and practice, our initial combo walking up to a mob is going to look like this. Execute Barrage, hit Whirling Slash 3 times, send the twisters, sweep with Rake, draw some distance with Disengage, put the finishing touch, Bloodhunt, on any remaining enemies. These are usually the elites or some fodder to collect some frenzy charges from to start our next combo with even more devastation. For bosses, Rake and Disengage is great for mobility and staying, moving, not in one place. You want to make sure you're adding in those tornadoes with Barrage to damage high and fast. With enough bleeding, you can finish the boss off with style, aka Bloodhunt. Likes and dislikes. I'll start with likes. It's highly mobile. I move around and, I'm not just in one spot holding one button. I'm pressing multiple movement keys, using multiple skills, different variations of the combo. And that leads me into my second like is the comboing. I play a lot of hack and slash games, so it kind of gives me the hack and slash theme, or for lack of better words, style of play. And then skill development. I think if you play this build and you get to the end game and you get to level 90, you got some serious skills, all right? Because if you don't know what you're doing, you're dying. And dislikes, if you don't have any life leech, you're going to die fast. This build has been getting hit a lot, so counteract with that higher evasion and or armor. The energy shield nodes are not accessible until far into the end game, where you want to make that transition with Tangle Tongue, Unique, Spear, and go for a crit build. Also, another dislike is the low mana. You will find yourself without mana a lot of the times if you do not have a single equipment with mana leech or mana regeneration. So to wrap things up, this is a highly mobile and capable build that requires timing and precision that delivers payloads of blood. I've had fun playing and making this build twice now. I am excited to see if I can add any variations to this build, like adding poison and admixture support, or going for the good old Tangle Tongue unique in-game build that also melts pinnacle bosses. If you like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe for more content. I usually stream every day at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, so drop on down and say hi. Y'all have a great day, and I am out.